In a previous video, I once covered the Red Room. Back then, I intentionally avoided presenting a clear conclusion, ending instead on a lingering sense of shock, a kind of jump scare aftertaste left by the flash experience itself. When I spoke to someone who had lived through the early days of the internet, they told me something memorable. Back then, flash works felt like they might actually exist somewhere. And perhaps they were right. The internet of the early 2000s still carried an air of the unknown, a faint sense of something underground. But this time, I wanted to look at the Red Room from a different angle. Not just as a horror piece, but as something that gradually transformed into an urban legend. Real-world events, media narratives, and society's uneasy relationship with the internet. All of these may have played a role. So today, we revisit the Red Room, not to retell the fear, but to reconsider how it came to be remembered. For clarity, the Red Room discussed here refers specifically to the flash novel attributed to o-toro, and the urban legends about cursed banners or websites that likely stem from it. Other uses of the name, dark web myths, films, novels, or unrelated legends, are outside the scope of this discussion. Around 2003, a flash novel titled The Red Room appeared online. The story begins with a rumor about a pop-up advertisement that kills you if you close it. Then one day, it appears for real. No matter how many times it's closed, it comes back again and again, until the experience shifts from annoyance to something far more unsettling. At the time, pop-up ads were universally disliked, and the internet itself still felt like an uncertain frontier. That atmosphere, half familiar, half unknown, gave the work a strange sense of realism, and may explain why it came to be regarded as a classic. In 2004, a real incident occurred. Without going into detail, it involved minors and shocked society, both in Japan and abroad. Afterwards, online discussions began to claim that the perpetrator had bookmarked a Red Room site, or may have been influenced by it. Some overseas news articles, citing Kyoto News, reported that a Red Room novel link was found on the perpetrator's homepage. These reports even hinted at violent imagery within the story, yet notably, they stopped short of stating that the work influenced the crime. Research on media violence remains inconclusive, though many argue that such content may be one factor among many complex influences. At the time, young people often quietly shared horror novels and other provocative works among themselves. In that sense, it is difficult to say that one single piece stood apart. Still, the name Red Room began to take on new meaning as it became entangled with the incident in public discourse. If many young people were exposed to similar works, why did only the Red Room become something more? The answer may lie not in the work itself, but in how it was discussed afterward. On forums like Reddit, the Red Room gradually stopped being described as a flash work and started appearing as a real curse connected to an actual event. Stories about bookmarks, about cursed pop-ups, about hidden dangers online. These fragments combined into a larger narrative. At that point, the Red Room was no longer just a flash animation. It had become a story about the internet itself. Urban legends rarely emerge from facts alone. They grow through repetition, reinterpretation, and the gaps between memory and meaning. So why did the Red Room come to be treated as something that once truly existed? Part of the answer lies in its structure, a horror built on everyday internet experiences like pop-ups. Another part lies in the narratives that linked it to real events. And finally, flash culture itself, where works often spread without clear authorship, allowed the story to detach from its creator. Over time, the Red Room stopped being a horror work someone made and became something that existed on the internet. Perhaps it did not become an urban legend because it was the scariest. Perhaps it became one because it kept being retold. When we look back at internet history, what we see is not only the works themselves, but the way people chose to talk about them. Maybe the Red Room never truly lived inside a screen. Maybe it existed only in the stories we continued to tell.